Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. So today's pick a card reading, we're looking into past lives, and the inspiration for this, if you ever need an inspiration for looking into past lives, is that I just recently purchased a new oracle. You can see three of the cards there. That is called the Past Lives Revelations Oracle, and it's done by the same people who've done the Romance Archetypes Oracle and the Career Oracle that I've been using recently. I think they're an incredible creators. They're incredible creators of decks because they do incredibly detailed and different sorts of ways of looking at things. So what they've sort of done with the past lives here is that they've put in energies or experiences that could be very literal about a time or a place, or could be around a type of energy, a type of experience, and so forth. So each card has a past life insight that connects to it. So we've got this one, which is to be power of the choice, plus three others to give us some ideas about the past life insights that are coming through. So that's what today's reading is about. It's like, what messages and insights do your past lives have to bring to you for this life? So this deck, as I say, is ideal for that. And what we're going to do to start off is we're going to look at that. We're going to ask with tarot, yes, no sort of energy, whether we're looking at one key life, whether we're looking at two, or whether we're looking at multiple. And depending upon what the answer is, how I use the tarot a little bit later will be dependent upon that, and how I use some of the oracles will be dependent on that. But you'll see as that comes through. So probably don't need to do much more as an introduction to this. Obviously, you can go to more than one reading if you feel drawn to two, because there could be, or even three, because there could be messages across all of them for you. It might be an amalgam. But to help with the choice, as I say, I ask Spirit for each pile one of the cards that would be relevant to the messages from your past lives. So for pile number one, we've got the Charioteer's Reins. Now, it could mean that you've lived at some time where chariots were used, or in some culture where that was the case. So if you feel that, that could be a bit of a confirmation and drawing you to this. But the past life insight says, lives spent in pursuit, steering through challenges, or as a driver of change and progress. So it doesn't necessarily have to be sort of back in sort of like ancient Rome driving a chariot. It could be, a life as an activist or something like that. So it's an energy rather than just a time or place. Pile number two is the Vintner's Barrel. So the past life insight here is crafting something cherished over time, just as someone who is doing, fine wine would do. Understanding of alchemy in nature, or as a cultivator of fine art. So as I say, it could be a number of things. And for pile number three, we have the Gladiator's Arena, a life of combat, spectacle, or overcoming trials in the public eye, possibly as a celebrated hero or survivor. So that's the sort of energy there. And as I say, there'll be three others that might moderate or add to that and give us a bit of a sense about how many lives are talking to you. So go to more than one reading if you wish, as I said, but whatever reading or readings you want, I've got the timestamps as always in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, pile one, to your reading. So as I say, we have the Charioteer's Reins, and in the introduction I read what the past life insight was, but I will reread that just in case you're sort of someone who doesn't listen to the introductions and just jumps to your pile. What we have here are four cards that are looking at describing one or more past lives that are important to this life, and the insights and the revelations that they want to bring and the messages they want to bring. So as I say, the Charioteer's Reins, to repeat that, lives spent in pursuit, steering through challenges, or as a driver of change and progress. Makes it very interesting that the first of the three other cards is the Innkeeper's Key, a life central to community, providing respite and sanctuary, or as a confidant for travellers and locals alike. So I think there's quite a strong connection here around time and place and home and protecting a community, that there is an energy here that you brought in where you are protective of community, and I think protective of secrets and what needs to be done to make people feel at home and feel secure. We then have the Forge of Destiny that says craftsmanship, artisanship, or blacksmithing, symbolising a life spent creating with hands, fire and metal, possibly forging weapons or tools. So whether this is the same life or a couple of lives, there is something here in your energy and in the messages about protection, I think. Weapons of protection. I don't think it's weapons of just trying to do conquest or whatever. However, having said that, we do have the explorer's compass, and that says a life of seeking horizons, pioneering discoveries, or as a trailblazer of new paths and ideas. So I think sometimes in one or more lives, your sense of community and home and what the destiny of that was and how to sort of like support also meant learning more about the rest of the world and seeing, where there could be other places that communities could live, how to expand territory. I do get for some of you, there could be something like a Viking type life here. So it's a little bit about your community, but it's also about getting out there, or something like the Vikings where they went out. So there could be conquest for some, but I think for most, this is more an energy of working out both by protection of the community and also seeing where the community could best grow, evolve, and so forth, how to protect a group and like how to be the hero in a sense for a group. So I think there's something like that in this life for you in one form or another, the protection of that which is community, close, family, being prepared to design and use the weapons necessary to do that, but also trying to expand out, I think, seek new ideas, new cultures and so forth, and find a more harmonious way of going forward. So what we're firstly going to do is I'm going to use the tarot, and I'm going to use it very specifically in yes-no capacity, because I want to work out whether I'm looking at one key life here or whether I'm looking at a couple or whether I'm looking at multiple. So I'm just going to go yes, no on each of those till I get the answer. So I have a system for yes, no. Ace to 10 of Wands and Cups and Major Arcana are yes. Ace to 10 of Swords and Pentacles and Court cards are no. I do sometimes with Court cards say it's too close to call if it's reversed and Cups and Wands come out in the Court cards. But in this case, I think I'm just going to go with the straight yes or no, because that's really what I'm asking about. So I'm asking Spirit here, are we looking primarily at one key life here? And we have the Three of Cups, so the answer is yes. So we're looking at one key life. So that is going to have an impact going forward on how I use the tarot. So I'll just take that back because that was just for that purpose. So this is a life that kind of encompassed all of those energies. So that's why it kind of felt a bit like Vikings or like kind of any type of life where there was an expansion across the world. I think it probably sets it in times where that was the case as well. So I'm also going to shuffle the Earth Power Oracle now, and I'm going to draw out a couple of cards because although it's only one life we're looking at, I want to get a couple of cards around places and times that might help, because this is a collective reading and working out what this was. So it could be literally places, or it could be sort of spiritual approaches that connect you to a place. So you have to be fairly lateral with this. But firstly, we get the Tarkeen. And secondly, we get Mecca. Oh, okay. All right. So the two places are Australia and Saudi Arabia. The two kind of instant sort of spiritual traditions one could be looking at is sort of anything Indigenous, First Nations in Australia, but anything Indigenous and Indigenous sort of energy. I think that's tilting towards those where the protection of community was the main thing. And like potentially if you're looking at Indigenous Australia, the explorer might be walkabout sort of energy. So some of you may have had a very deeply spiritual life if you were First Nations in that way, or potentially other Indigenous sort of very close to nature energy. The other one here obviously is Islam. So it's very true of Islam as a religion is that it sought to take its beliefs out into the world and travelled a lot and expanded its horizons a lot. So that makes sense for either of those. It doesn't mean that you have to align with those spiritual things now, or it could be that you do. And it's not necessarily that it was in one or other of those places that the life was, but that sort of sense of being very close to place, home and nature, and also a spiritual connection, which is almost the forge of destiny. What is that you're taking out into the world, and why you would take it out into the world is important for you. So I think that this is saying that you've got a bit of a cause, a bit of you're here to protect and to take a cause and to take an idea out into the broader world, but also to protect those that are closest to you. Okay, so let's see then. We're looking at one key life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask about firstly with tarot, about this particular life that was involved. And I'm going to then ask about how it's impacting this life, and I'm going to ask what's unconscious or unseen. Now, if it's more than one life, in other readings I may do two versions of that first part of it about the two lives. And if it's multiple, I'm just going to do one key one and then the rest. So, but in this we have one key life. So let's just see what we get in terms of more information about it. And I'm using a sigil-based tarot deck because I wanted it to be agnostic to time and place. So, the King of Cups, the Seeker, which is the Fool card, the Queen of Talismans, which is the Pentacles, Queen of Pentacles reversed, the Four of Pentacles reversed, Justice, Queen of Cups reversed. Okay, this was a very community-based environment. I think you were like a shaman or a spiritual leader or a spiritual healer or somebody who had some degree of leadership. But it feels like it's like spiritual leadership more than, I mean, we've got the Forge of Destiny, we've got all of that. It's more that than being, like a warrior, though you may well have had a warrior. I mean, say for argument's sake that you were a Knights Templar, which is another thing you could have here, protecting something very sacred and spiritual and the connection to the community and those that were connected to that brotherhood, but also taking that out into the world. That could also fit. But there's sort of something where there's leadership, where you put your leadership ahead of your own emotional needs. I think you had a very, very strong role, like you were a judge or, as I say, a leader, someone who really did, if you were a charioteer, you were right out the front, if you were like a gladiator, you were like the Russell Crowe character in Gladiator, like really leading out the charge, that kind of energy. And you had a very strong sense about what was right and wrong. But you were looking to the new worlds. The explorer's compass is really important to the new world. That you were looking for new worlds, you were looking for new places and how to expand the community. Because I think that you were there in a time where change was going on in the community, where there was some risk to the community in some way. So, it could have been, First Nations in Australia, it could have been around a time where, the sort of white colonial energy sort of came in, for instance. So major change to something that had been ancient and in place. It could have been around, Mecca or something like that, changes, in the, what were the major religions and what was going to be in particular places and so forth. And there's something around that that's important in this life, whether you're literally involved in something like that again, or whether it's just that kind of understanding, the comprehension of how to protect your community, your belief structure, whatever it is, while exploring how to grow it, but at the same time understanding that change itself has to be balanced because it can be a bit risky. That's the sort of energy that's around this for you. So let's ask, how is that actually impacting this life? Strength, the Oracle, so that's, effectively the Hierophant. The Six of Keys, which is the Six of Swords reversed. The Five of Swords. The Six of Wands reversed. Okay. You have a great deal of strength. Great deal of strength in what you believe, a great deal of strength, to be a steward, to be a leader in some way. You have the strength to go out and do new things. And you have some sort of like spiritual authority. So whether it's literally that you are now in a life where you are in a particular spiritual group and you have established yourself, or whether it is that you've brought through spiritual authority, because I feel like you were a spiritual and probably almost a legal authority in this past life. So that strength has come through. Partly that's because you have come into conflict, or you are going to be dealing with conflict, and where it's not clear what the direction is. And where there's no glittering prizes at the end to deal with this. This is more that you have a calling than that you necessarily are going to be sort of lauded as as, the savior of something. This is more having a quest for the purpose of the quest, and because you're the right person for it, not because you are seeking some sort of thank you. In fact, if anything, I think in this past life, as I say, you were you in that life and a bit in this life, you kind of sacrifice your own emotional outcomes for a greater cause. So I guess there may be a question here about making sure you keep that in balance, and but I think for some of you, you may say that I have to keep it, can't be about ego, and it can't be seen to be about me because there's too much conflict here. The only way I can come forward with authority and strength is not to have a vested interest that's personal. So that could be what's going on. But you definitely have the strength and the moral authority and spiritual authority to do what it is that you're here in this life to do. So what is unconscious or unseen around this message that's coming through? Why did Spirit feel this was important to bring you this understanding of your past lives? 6 of Pentacles reversed, Ace of Swords reversed, 3 of Pentacles, the Magician reversed. Okay. What Spirit wants you to know is the hardest thing for you to see is where you have collaborators. And there's 2 reasons for it. One is because normally you've been the leader and there's a certain leadership thing you've brought through here. So finding equals and finding collaborators may almost feel, I can't do that. How can I do that? But Spirit is saying there will be ones that you can have. But the other reason that it's hard is that there's something about this life where you're around people you can't trust as well. So I think what is most unseen is who you can trust and who you can't trust. So Spirit's almost having it both ways. Spirit's sort of saying, be aware that there will be people who are equals who can work with you on this, but equally be aware there will be those that are trying to lie or manipulate. So I was going to draw 2 cards from the Lucid Dreams Metro deck to look at symbols around what's unconscious. I think I'm going to ask specifically here, I'm going to ask one symbol or sign or synchronicity to show you who you can trust, and one sign, symbol or synchronicity to show who you can't. So firstly, who you can trust. Hotel, travel, escape, transition, limbo, insecurity, uncertainty. You will find, this is the explorer thing, you will find your people by traveling and exploring out. The best people for you to work with are not the ones who are in your community or home right now. These are the ones you find on the exploration. It's almost like those that are in your community could potentially even be competitors, or the Magician reversed here. So how do you know you're dealing with the Magician reversed energy? Theatre, art, storytelling, drama. Okay. The people who you can't trust will seem very compelling, very charismatic, very dramatic. They may talk to you, like literally they may talk to you through theatrical things and so forth. You've got to get out into the actual world rather than the imagined world. I'm sort of thinking, like the culture war sort of thing, that those that might be not the right ones to connect with might be those that are using drama, art, propaganda, whereas those that are legitimate are on the path. So that's the way that you can tell. They're traveling too, they're expanding as well. They're not trying to encapsulate and dramatize, they're actually trying to experience. Okay, what I also wanted to do was look at the balance of male and female energy coming through from the past life. So I was going to do either 1 or 2 of these depending upon how many lives. We're only talking about one, so we'll just draw 1 masculine archetype and 1 feminine archetype for energy that you're bringing through from this life as well. That's important to this one. So the masculine one, father. Yeah, this is this King of Cups. I think that you're probably male, to be honest, in this past life, regardless of whatever gender you are or identify with now. But I feel like you were. I think there's a real stewardship energy here. And I think it is about the exploration is not just about physical space, it's also about the sort of the lineage and so forth. So that's important. That kind of stewardship energy has come through. And then from the feminine energy, solar plexus, impersonal, empathy, patience. Yeah, I feel like there is a sense where you actually, for your strength, you've actually sort of detached a bit. I think it is important to be aware of that. It may be helpful for you sometimes, but as an archetype, you also need to make sure that it doesn't, you do actually have your energy operating and helping you as well. Okay, So we also wanted to get you some spiritual guidance that's come through from this life. So we're going to look at what your ancestors have to say, and then a angel or celestial being and a divine animal energy that has come through from this past life to provide guidance in this one. So from your ancestors, firstly, conscientious. I think that you have carried through this conscientious stewardship energy, and your ancestors are acknowledging that. It's partly this, that you do it for others. There's a great service to others energy here, and I think they're here to help you with that. But I think they're also here to remind you that you have to be conscientious for yourself as well. So let's see what angelic energy is with you. Merlin, wow, that's good, because like if you have the reverse magician to be dealing with, it's wonderful if Merlin is with you. So as I say, there's a spiritual authority here. There's a spiritual authority. The other, of course, energy that this could fit with is something like, the Arthurian legends, and taking forward, trying to build a community and trying to build what was right, and trying to bring that beautiful concept of a life pattern and a way of being and the magical energy into the world. So Merlin is here with you now too, to help with that and to manifest and have the alchemy that you need to achieve what you're trying to achieve. And then let's get you a divine animal, a spirit animal that's followed you through from this life into this life. The snake. Creation, shedding the skin of one thing, starting something new. And the wisdom, because there's a lot of wisdom that you need for this. Be wise as serpents, as they say. There is a sense here of knowing what to create, how to change, what needs to change, what new energy comes through. When you are exploring and the snake is shedding its skin, what do you still protect to take that forward? So that energy is with you as well too. So you're very much the kind of explorer and the steward. And you've got some sort of a cause this time around which is connected to it. Let's get you some astrology as well. Let's look at a couple of pairings of planets that are an energy that you've brought forward from this life that we've been exploring. Sun and moon, wow, alchemical. There is something very alchemical about you. Some of you may be drawn to, I think it's pile 2 with the vintner as well. I'm not telling you to go there. It's just if you feel drawn to it, then it's a tick that's the case, because that was talking about alchemy, and Merlin talks about alchemy. There is a kind of sense of creating the change that's necessary to support the community. It also could be saying that there's a great love that existed in that life and it will exist in this life as well. And Sun and Uranus. But your life path is the change and the growth and the evolution and revolution. And I actually think, I think this last life was more about exploration. I think this life, there is a cause you have. You will find a cause around all of this, and you need to you'll know that a change is necessary for you, your family, your community, whatever it is that you're protecting, to be able to follow their path. Change is necessary. Something has to break, something has to shift. Okay, so to finish off, we're just going to use the Rainbow Oracle for your 5D self, how that sort of is integrating knowledge now of this past life. Free spirit. The wild heart of freedom embraces the untamed, invoking truth, authenticity, and self-expression. This is the explorer side of it. I think, if anything, you tilted more towards the protection with a bit of the exploration. This time around, the exploration, I think, is a cause towards change and towards greater freedom. And you have the spiritual and moral and intellectual authority to do it. So I hope that resonates for you, Pile 1. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So you came to the reading with the Vintner's Barrel, where you now have the Clockmaker's Gears, the Seer's Orb, and the Seraph's Feather. What I got to say right out from the gate, this is a very spiritual group. This is a very spiritual reading, and it was a very spiritual life. And whatever sort of its messages are, it's up for the spiritual aspect of your life now. Just in case you jump straight to this, because I know not everybody listens to my somewhat long-winded introductions, I'm going to read you the past life insight from all, including the Vintner's Barrel, even though I did read it in the introduction. And as I said in the introduction with the Vintner's Barrow, I mean, it could be sort of like, and there is some energy here that some of you, this life could have been about taking a spiritual sense of balance and alchemy and creating something very fine and very, very precious. That is possible. But I think for most of you, it's actually more the alchemy here, because this says crafting something cherished over time, understanding of alchemy in nature, or as a cultivator of the fine arts. So if you were, for instance, someone who was an alchemist, but you weren't doing it as a spiritual thing, this could be a life a bit like William Blake, for instance, who was a great mystic, and he was an artist and a poet and a writer. So the fine arts energy and so forth, it could be something like that. Or if you were the clockmaker gears, when it says precision and attention to the intricate workings of time, or as an innovator of mechanisms, you could have brought that spiritual understanding into any kind of sort of mechanism or fine precision work in some way. I feel like sacred geometry, sacred mathematics here as well too. You could even be bringing into this life, looking at things like quantum physics and how the intricacies and you know, the finer points of the universe and how it operates together. I mean, there's that kind of energy to it potentially. Then and yeah, as I say, these could be very much in fine arts. It could be being a clockmaker. It could be, you know, a fine artist in some way. But then we have these two incredibly spiritual ones. So we've got the seer's orb, a history of prophetic insights, divination, or guiding others through foresight and vision. And we have the seraph's feather, lives lived with a sense of grace and service, possibly as a messenger of higher truths or divine will. So I think really large angelic connection with this. As a seer, as a prophet, as a messenger in some way. And I think then creating something, an alchemical balance or something in fine arts or something very beautiful or something that sort of gives a sense of time and precision and mathematics, as I say, like it's could have been anything using this ability spiritually, but for some of you it will have been just being someone very spiritual. So let's firstly ask, I'm going to ask with the yes-no system that I use around whether we're looking at one key life or whether we're looking at two or whether we're looking at multiple. So I'm just going to ask yes-no till I get to the answer of that, because that impacts how I do the tarot. So my yes-no system, ace to 10 of wands and cups and all major arcana are yes, ace to 10 of swords and pentacles and all court cards are no. So are we looking for this reading at one life primarily? Queen of Talismans, no, we're looking at more than one. Okay. Are we looking at two lives, two specific lives? Eight of Keys, no, we're looking at multiple. Okay, so what I will do is I'm going to ask for the key one, and then I'm going to ask for what the other ones were. So we're going to look at two levels now. In a minute, we've got to do something else first, but we're going to look at two levels around the lives, and then we're going to sort of ask what impact they're having more generally with tarot. But before we do that, I'm going to just shuffle and use the Earth Power Oracle to give some idea maybe of the type of spiritual background or place that these lives might have been in. It doesn't have to be literal. You can be quite lateral with this. So firstly, we have Machu Picchu. And secondly, we have Troy. Wow, okay. So these could be showing particular places or times that you had these lives. So Peru or Turkey, they could talk about particular times, the sort of times of the kind of indigenous cultures that occurred around Peru, you know, literally the time of sort of Roman Empire and so forth, the Trojan horse, all of that kind of energy could have been connected. I do think with either of those, if you've lived in those times or places, you've been, you know, like a Delphic oracle almost, or a kind of a shaman or spiritual sort of connection here, because there's such a strong sense of the spiritual coming through. But you know, you could have been an architect of the sort of amazing sort of cities and so forth in Machu Picchu, you know, that's something like that. Or you could have sort of helped with the sort of understanding of time and expansion for, you know, Troy. So it could have played out on any levels, or they just might be similar sort of energies and similar spiritual energies for you. So it just depends on what resonates for you. So I'm going to ask firstly for a little bit more about the key life that this energy is coming from. Then I'm going to ask for anything else about the others if we're looking at multiple. So Spirit is going to need to pick this key life that best works for this collective. So the key life, a little bit more about that. The Lovers reversed. The Six of Cups reversed. The Seeker reversed. So that's the Fool reversed. The Oracle, that's the Hierophant reversed, but it's interesting, Oracle coming up. The Prince of Cups reversed. So firstly, first of all, whatever this life was, it was behind the scenes, which makes sense. You know, if you're a fine artisan, if you're an oracle or a seer or some sort of spiritual person, it was behind the scenes. It was done in secrecy, I feel like. There was a lot of secrecy, a lot of the mysteries around this. You may have been celibate, I wouldn't be surprised, with the Lovers reversed. Though I think it was, if so, or if you weren't celibate, you may not have been connected with one person. Like one of the things I'm getting is like the mystery schools or something like that, where there could have either been celibacy or sacred unions that were with more than one, or not sort of like you wouldn't go off and get married or something like that. There's something here about a kind of like unconventional spirituality, unconventional relationships. I feel like you were taken away from your childhood home very early because you were seen as someone who could do this thing. And so some of the roads that you might have wanted to go on, you couldn't do. Like it was all mapped out for you. And yeah, I feel as though there was a kind of a giving up of like the normal love, the normal lifestyle and so forth. So there's something here about being chosen for an order, chosen for your spiritual abilities, and therefore not the key life not being really about what we would traditionally think of. Let's see what the other lives, so if that's a kind of prototypical or the key life, what was different that you've also brought through from the other lives that this is representing? So you've been like this in many lives in one way or another. You've been a seer, you've been a messenger, that kind of thing. Ace of Elixirs, the Three of Swords, the Six of Swords, the Five of Swords reversed, the Ace of Talismans. Okay, in some of your other lives, you were allowed to explore the material and emotional world more. The key one, you were chosen, separated out in a mystery school or something like that. But you were in other lives with this ability allowed to explore things more materially and more emotionally. The interesting thing about it is that it brought both peace of mind to do that and also pain and conflict. So it's sort of like, it's almost as though the cards are saying that there was a loss or a sense of loss in the primary one because you were taken out and put into some form of spiritual order because of your abilities. In the others, your abilities did not preclude it, but then that meant you were more in the material world and you had to deal with all the sorrows that come with that. So it's sort of like you were given the experience of both. And it's partly, I think, about that alchemical balance and so forth. But like ultimately, you know, you're kind of more like a seer than sort of like a normal. And you're probably like that in this life too, than just a sort of average person who is more in the material world. You're probably a little bit more in the spiritual world for the most part. So let's see what is the impact of this on this life. Nine of Swords reversed, Five of Wands, Seven of Wands, and the World reversed. Okay, there's definitely something incomplete from this. There's something that you're meant to complete, a cycle or a journey or a message that you're meant to complete and bring through that you didn't fully bring through in these other lives, but that, you know, you were obviously focused on. The good thing is that the energy to do this, like the conflict that you might experience, is actually to make you feel more confident to be able to finish this cause. And any worries you have about it, partly this messaging is meant to make you understand that you're now ready for the battle. You're ready to bring that message out. You're ready to complete one of the key things that you're meant to do in this world. So there's a sense of taking forward everything that you learned. I feel like this was a life of learning and contemplation. There was then the life of comparison, what it was to be so psychic but in the material world. This time around, I think you're in the material world, but you're allowed to now work out how to complete and bring that together. And it's almost like aging the fine wine. You're ready to complete that particular cycle. So what is still unconscious or unseen from this past life that's impacting your life going forward? Prince of Keys reversed, Queen of Talismans, Eight of Keys. Okay, what is unseen is you still have a sense of a commitment to some sort of a cause that came right from the beginning. You've carried that all the way through. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but what Spirit is saying is you need to be aware of that, because it's part of what your choices are, and it also will help you know what it is that you're meant to complete, because you do have the opportunity this time to complete it. It's like a karmic agreement or contract you set in place a long time ago because of this ability and your connection to the upper realms. And now you can do it. But there's a sort of a sense, there's almost a sense that there's a warring energy of you that feels a bit constrained by commitment, like you almost don't want commitment. So you may even find in this life that you don't like to sort of settle to a job or settle to a relationship or whatever. If you understand that this is part of this energy, and that if you can identify what is the spiritual message that you complete in this life, you'll find that that commitment sort of sorts itself out. So I'm going to get you a couple of signs from the Lucid Dreams Metro deck that might help you know when you're identifying what that commitment is, so that you can finish that cycle. You can effectively, have aged the fine wine to where it needs to age, pile 2. So firstly, we have journaling, self-reflection, catharsis, new. So it's sort of saying that you could sort of sit down and journal, write out your story, think about it. It'll become clear to you when you see the narrative of this life, understanding the messages that are coming from this reading. And, wow, soap, detox, cleansing, karmic power, self-care, renewal. Yeah, it's like cleansing off all that no longer applies and finding your own freedom. And that's the last bit of it. But I think there's something that you're meant to help to show a new narrative and to cleanse in the world. That's the message that you have. When you're clear on that, when you've cleaned away everything that it isn't, you'll get to the core of what it is, what the true narrative is. Okay. Let's have a look at the balance of yin and yang. So we're going to look firstly at the energy from the core life, and then we're going to have a look from the others. So this is like yin-yang energy that was existing in these lives that has brought through its shadow or its light, depending upon what it is, into this life. So firstly from that core life, where I think that you were almost a hermit or a initiate in the mystery schools or whatever it is, the masculine archetype energy. The scribe. Now that's interesting. That's part of the reason why journaling now, writing this down. You went in and you got messages and you wrote them down. You might have automatic writing, all of those things. You may have that ability in this life. Okay, and then let's see the masculine energy from the other lives that were connected with this, which were more in the material world, but still had your sort of spiritual overlay. Adventurer. Okay, so you were more able to adventure and look into things, but of course it had more risks and so forth. So in one, it was more scholarly and set apart and just giving the messages. In the adventurer, it was more getting out and seeking what you felt you didn't know or what was in the world. The feminine archetype energy around the core life for you is intention, conception, beginnings, headwaters. Yeah, the intention of all of this was set in this life. When you were, I would say probably female. And in the mystery schools. That's what I would think for most who've come to this reading. And then the other lives brought through solar plexus, impersonal, empathy, patience. Yeah, it's sort of like it was less about you and more about the experience with others. Gave you that sense of empathy, because this is a little bit kind of cloistered away. This was more in the world. They're both important energies for you in this life. Okay, so let's get you some messages. First of all, a message from your ancestors. Then we're going to look at the angelic realm, and then we'll have a look at the spirit animal realm for messages that help you through bringing this understanding and this insight through. So from your ancestors, attention. Okay, where are you paying attention? Pay attention to something. I think this is all about pay attention, I think, to what's coming up in you. Sort of like, I think try automatic writing if you haven't already done it. Writing things, journaling, pay attention. What you pay attention to will lead you to where this is. And they're saying that's the key. Then in terms of angelic energy, Archangel Uriel, illumination, inner power, ideas into form. Yeah, this is the creation of the alchemy. It's bringing things into form. Where you're paying attention is what you manifest. What does that mean in terms of you closing out the message? The message, you're meant to bring a message. Actually, I do think that some of you are meant to write, or, whether it's poetry or writing, or you're meant to sing, or there's some message that you're meant to bring from ideas into form so that people see the message you're bringing through. And then the spirit animal that has come through from these lives with you into this life is the sea turtle, which is about stability. So there is sort of something here where you're being protected so that you have the stability financially and otherwise to be able to focus on this. So that's a very positive energy for you. This is not, you completing this and then getting the freedom you want is not going to destabilize your life. So that's a great promise from Spirit for you. So let's just get a couple of pairings of planetary energy that you brought through from this life as well. Uranus and Neptune. Yeah, this is the Ceres feather. This is the seer's orb. This is the numinous, the connection, the direct connection to the upper realms. You've brought that through. You are a seer or a prophet or a messenger now. And Saturn and Neptune, you bring it into form. And you've had the discipline. This core life, you learnt the disciplines to do it. And I think then you experimented in the other lives with how that is in the material world. So you understand that so that you can both revolutionize and also stabilize what needs to come through from the spiritual realm. So it's pretty big stuff. But I thought that would be the case anyway, particularly once I saw the three others there. So let's finally give you an image of your 5D self. Now, if you integrate the messages from these past lives. Stillness. In the quietness of the moment, you can hear your inner voice more clearly. Yeah, it's almost going back to the beginning. I feel like there was a great deal of stillness in that first life, but you're in the material world this life, getting back to that stillness. Then all this energy will come through to you and you'll know what your message is. It'll become very clear what it is that you're sort of completing and taking out so that then you've done something very important from the angelic realms. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 3, to your reading. So you came to the one with the gladiators arena, and I will reread the past life insight, even though I did read it in the introduction, for those who just skip straight to the pile, because it's kind of important in getting the sense of what's being talked about in terms of the insight. You're an interesting mix of energies, I think, looking at the other cards that we've got here. But so let's go through each one at a time and then we'll talk about it. So the Gladiators Arena says, a life of combat, spectacle, or overcoming trials in the public eye, possibly as a celebrated hero or survivor. So you could literally have been like a gladiator or somebody who is a hero or somebody who is in battle in many ways. But it's a hero or overcoming something. Doesn't have to be necessarily in battle. Given what I'm seeing here, I think you may have been a bit more subtle than that. I think you might have been kind of magical in the way that you dealt with it. We start with the Cartographer's Atlas, and it says, a life dedicated to mapping the physical or metaphorical landscapes, discovering new connections, or as an architect of worlds. Then we have the Time Weaver's Tapestry, which says mastery over the intricate threads of fate and destiny, weaving together the strands of past, present, and future. And then we have the Conductor's Baton, lives orchestrating harmony, leading ensembles of talent, or uniting disparate elements into a symphony. So what I'm getting from this is someone, like it kind of feels very magical. It feels like a life or lives. Almost like someone who's like a time traveler. Like I'm not saying literally you're a time traveler. Maybe you are. I mean, who knows? Who knows? Maybe someone who's come to the reading is actually a time traveler. But it feels as though you have causes and you have a kind of heroic energy. And sometimes, what you find and where you find, you actually have to do a cause. But it's like it's in the service of mapping almost the kind of celestial and earthly energies and bringing things into harmony in some way. So you know what it makes me think of? is like Doctor Who. I'm not saying that you're Doctor Who or the Doctor Who is a real person, but like the energy is a similar sort of energy. It feels like someone who either really understands the material world and how that connects with time and what that means for how we do things, and where it's necessary you go into battle to bring those into alignment, or someone who almost knows how to weave a tapestry, literally, of time and understanding and connection, so that you become a hero, but you're a hero in a way of conciliation and collaboration rather than in the arena. Like, you're quite capable of being in the arena if you need to, but it's almost like most of the time you don't need to. And so I feel like in this particular life, there's a real understanding of where the world has come from and where its battles have been and where its harmony needs to be. But it's come from this sort of like clever, almost timeline hopping sort of energy. So whether you literally feel you do that, and maybe some of you do. It's a very interesting group that I read for in this collective, so nothing would surprise me. But otherwise it's more metaphorical. But it's a very interesting thing where I think you could do a battle, but most of the time you're really clever and you don't need to. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to ask whether we're looking at one specific life primarily, two or multiple. I'm just going to do a yes-no on that. So my yes-no system is Ace to 10 of Wands and Cups and Major Arcana are yes, Ace to 10 of Swords and Pentacles and Court cards are no. So are we looking in what the messages are in this? It doesn't mean you've only had one life, but are the messages for this reading primarily about one life? Three of Swords, no. Okay, is it about two lives? Ace of Pentacles, no. I have a feeling it's about three, but it means it's multiple in any case. So what I'm going to do, the reason I did that is this has a bearing on what I do with the tarot. So when we get to the tarot, I'm going to ask Spirit for the key life around all of it, and then also what the other lives bring to the table. Okay, but before we do that, we're just going to use the Earth Power Oracle to see if we can find times, places, spiritual backgrounds or whatever that could align literally or might be allegorically similar to the life or lives that you need to sort of like understand now for what Spirit wants to bring to you. So firstly, we have Lake Wanaka, and then we have the Ajanta Caves. So literally we're talking about New Zealand, the Maori race, their sort of spirituality, their sort of lifestyle and so forth, and India with Buddhism and so forth. So either of those in sort of time periods and place and so forth could be places that you actually existed to have this sort of life. It's interesting because I almost feel like if you're tilting towards the New Zealand Maori one, you're tilting towards a very material way of dealing with a very material issue. Whereas I feel like if you're tilting more towards the Ajanta Caves, it's more that you could have been in the material world, but instead you went into the celestial realm. You went into kind of affecting sort of change and being a hero, but from a more private spiritual way. And you might have done both, of course. You know, some of you might have done both. Okay, so let's have a look with the tarot. So because we got multiples, I say we're going to start firstly with some cards to show the key life and what is coming forward from that. Given this interesting, you could be in a battle if you needed to type of thing, but you're kind of really clever and, I don't know, very kind of mystical way of being able to kind of find collaboration and be able to influence things in a different way. So let's see firstly around that key life, and then we'll have a look at what the other lives bring. So the key life, Judgment, the Star reversed. Oh yeah, this makes sense. The Devil reversed. The Four of Pentacles reversed. The World reversed. Wow, okay. So everything except for the calling is reversed. So a lot of this was done in a hidden way. This is why I think that there's something very clever about what you do. You're not really seen. You could, as I say, if you had to, go out and be the hero that's seen, but I don't think by and large you do that. I think a lot of the time you're kind of the person who the Machiavelli, but in a positive way, in a spiritual way, who weaves the web behind the scenes. You knew your calling. You knew what you were doing. You kind of know who you are in the in the scheme of things, which is interesting. And therefore, you can escape all the issues that could get in the way with ego and with the powers of the world. You weren't that interested in that. Like, it didn't really bother you what the material outcome was. This was about following a calling. This was about something that was bigger, because there was a bigger mission in the world, in what was happening in the world. As I say, it has that kind of Doctor Who feeling. It's the best analogy I can give to it. Like, it's sort of like there are bigger fish to fry. And so you weren't about your ego, and you were quite hidden in what you did. But you were bringing through something. I think that some of you may have been born at very pivotal times with changing of spiritual, cultural, or political epochs. And we're kind of like there now, I have to say, at least in the Western world. So I suspect you're here for that reason as well. But anyway, let's see, what about the other lives? King of Talismans, so King of Pentacles. 10 of Talismans or Pentacles reversed. 3 of Wands reversed. 10 of Wands reversed. 2 of Cups reversed. Okay. I think a lot of that key life was done behind the scenes. As I say, very Machiavelli, very influencing from behind the scenes. I do think that some other lives you were more in positions of authority, potentially, when change was occurring. And when there was a lot of contention and a lot of drama around that, and people, splitting up, cultures shifting, like whatever was the spiritual sort of like underpinning shifting. Like, I think that there's a sort of sense that you come at times like that. That's what this is, what you're about. And in some lives you've had very material impacts. You've come into wealth maybe, or power, and been part of what brought the change from within. Other times, I think your key life wasn't even about that. It was very spiritual. It was very magical. I wouldn't mind betting that some of you in your key life, you learnt high magic or something, and you were working at a whole other level, which impacted the world, but it wasn't as much in the world. Then in other lives, you were in the world at times of change when the old order had to give way, and that you had to help people through what was the kind of emotional fallout of that. So let's see, how is this impacting this life? We have the 7 of Wands reversed, the Prince of Cups, which is the Knight of Cups, the Ace of Talismans, or Ace of Pentacles reversed, the 2 of Swords. Okay, so the interesting thing in this life at the moment, and probably why you've come to this, is to remember that you are the hero, and remember that you have all these abilities, because it looks like right now you can sense again, this is happening again, that some new thing is trying to be born, and it's like the emotional fallout of it, and like what you've experienced in other lives, you may have actually, suffered emotionally or whatever in some of these. There's a sort of a sense you feel like, like, I know something new is coming. I don't know. My heart isn't in it, I'm not sure. I'm not, like, in these lives, I think you were born into positions to access it. It's almost like this life, it's like you've got to navigate it yourself and find it. You weren't born into a powerful family or into the right place for this. It's like you have to find it. So it's like to remember so that you find it. Because at the moment you're kind of going, I don't have the information, I don't have the access, I don't have the keys. But this is to remind you, you are that, so that you can actually reconnect with that energy. So what, therefore, is still unseen or unconscious? Spirit wants to point out about these lives and what they've brought through for you. Princess of Elixirs, so Page of Cups. Ace of Keys, the Ace of Swords. Justice reversed. Okay. What Spirit is saying is that the thing you haven't necessarily found right now is your cause. But once you do, there's going to be an idea that's something that matters to you. Once you connect into that and you find your cause, the thing that you're trying to repair, because that's what you've always had to do before, that will help you. That's what you've got to raise up. What do you think is unjust? And I think you're in a realm where it could be a little bit hard to be sure what's unjust, like who's right and who's wrong. And that's very true of the world at the moment with all the propaganda. But this is sort of saying, bring up where your heart is, and that the first principle thought that you have is a key to this. So I wanted to use the Lucid Dreams Metro deck to ask for some signs about the unconscious information coming up. So this would be particularly helpful for you so that you know when you're connecting in. Because I think for whatever reason, in other lives, you were given the learning and the connection, you were given the place to do it. This life, it's kind of like you're on your own, but you've still got the same mission. So we have face, identity, integrity, confidence, emotions, authenticity. So I think this is about what face do you show the world? And I think it's also like what can you read in people's faces? What are they showing you? What are the emotions showing you? And back, unseen, subconscious, burden, responsibility. Understanding, it might be saying face the burden, actually. There is a burden, you just need to face it, and then it's going to become clear. Because you have the ability, Again, Doctor Who can't sort of say, oh, sorry, I'm not going to save the world today. So it's that kind of energy for you, I think. And when you really come into balance with that, you'll know. So we're talking about balance. Let's look at male and female archetypes. So firstly from the main life and then from the others that you've brought through. So let's look at the male action archetypes first. So from that core life, we have lost dreamer. Okay, I don't think you were really lost, but I think you were in all kinds of different realms and you had dreams. You had a dream of what you wanted, and it might be remembering that dream that's really important, going right back to the core. Then the other lives, the male archetype energy, gathering aid. Okay, I think this is why you're in the material world, finding the people you needed to collaborate with, the conductor's baton, who you couldn't just be in this sort of like floating in the stratosphere. You actually had to find the people to connect with. So that's important in this life as well too. What is your dream that you need to come back and re-see again, and who do you need to help you with it? Then the feminine energy for you. Spring, emerge, plan, beginnings. Yeah, that core life was the beginning of all of this. It was the kind of the emergence of who you are meant to be. And then the other lives, identity again. Follow, unmasking, changing self. This is about this. There is something about unmasking and showing who you are and who you really are meant to be and what you would fight for and how it fits into the bigger picture. There's some sort of energy around all of that for you. So identity is very important in this. Okay, so we're also going to get you some guidance, firstly from the ancestors. So ancestral energy that's come through for you. Perfection. Okay, I think that this is a bit of advice about not wanting perfection, but just wanting the next step. The fact that we've got the Ace of Keys, the next step. And like there could be a thing here where it's like a risk for you around sort of your identity and all of that kind of thing in your dream is like, can you materialize it, or or are you too much of a perfectionist? So I think there's something about understanding that. And understanding you aren't able to do it all too. You need other people with you. You don't have to be perfect at everything. Let's see what the angelic realm wants to bring to you. Hathor, celebration, rejuvenation, gratitude. Like there is a very strong sort of sense of coming through and remaking something and kind of there's something about change. There's something about being around at times of change and helping people with change. So, and rejuvenating and bringing it through to the next level, not having everything fall apart. And it's a bit of a burden, but it's something you're meant to do. Let's see in terms of spirit animals, what has come through with you for this. Shark, purpose, yeah. You have to be really focused on your purpose and kind of take no prisoners, not in a way of being just, rapacious, but in like being very focused on where you're heading. Once you know, you have to be very focused on that because it's big things, big stuff that you're dealing with. You're dealing with time, you're dealing with connection with others, you're dealing with what the map of the universe should be in its own way, in whatever way this plays out in your life. Okay, let's see some planetary pairings that also show energy that you've brought through from these lives. Mars and Uranus here. It's action. It's a gladiator. There is a battle. There is a battle. That's why the gladiator thing came up. But your way of dealing with it is different. It's in combination with others, and it's understanding it in the greater weave of time. But you are still required to act. And I almost feel like for some of you, you may not have been born, like in other lives, you may have been born into money and privilege. And this time around, you may not have been to really put the fire in the belly, because we're hitting a very pivotal point around this. And Sun and Saturn, yeah, it's taking on the responsibility. You have these gifts and this ability for a reason. It's not just kind of, oh, this is fun. You know, I can like be in the different realms and so forth, and almost warp time and see the past, the present and future all at one, or whatever it might be. You've actually got a responsibility. There's a reason that you've been given this. Okay, so to finish off, we're just going to see how your 5D self integrates this message so that you can move forward for your purpose and for what you're meant to be, I think, the actor and the steward of. Spiritual warrior. A spiritual warrior's only armor is the strength and power of their heart. Like, yeah, you're the gladiator, but it's a spiritual thing. But you're really clever at it. You really do understand stuff. So that's why, and you've been put in positions to round that out, kind of like almost a kind of a spiritual warrior's finishing skill. You know, if there was the equivalent of Hogwarts, but for spiritual warriors, that's kind of what your lifetimes have been. Now you're bringing it all together yourself. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.